Good morning. Our hand today is going to be pocket eights. In this hand, we have two limpers to me on a button. This is a 10 NL game. This guy's playing 44-7. This guy is playing something at mid position, like 32%. He's limping. He's raising for sin 8%. When we look at some notes, I do have a lot of hands on him. You can see like threes, ace 10 suited, queen 9 suited, queen 3, and jack 4 suited. I think those are interesting. 8-4 suited. Then you have ace jack off, king 9 off, queen jack off, jack 7 off. This is going to be a pretty wide range here. That right there is 32%. And you've got like 8% raising range here. And that's probably what he's looking at. We can add in some of these other like suited hands to get up to 34%. Then we kind of have to get rid of some of these other ones. And we said he had, what was it, like jack 7 offsuit. So, I mean, we add those in and it's going to be even wider. This is just something majorly wide. This player also looks to be wide, but we only have 20 hands on him. So when we look at his hand, he has played 40%. He's played 3 out of 7 from mid position, 2 out of 3 from cutoff, 1 out of 2 from button, 2 out of 2 from small blind. And when we look at those, he's calling 2 bets with those, cold call 2 bets. He does have a few limps, limp behinds with previous limpers, but he's also raised. So, this guy's range is quite a bit harder to nail down, I think. And also when we see, I've got a limp and called, you can look at that. I didn't look at it, so we could see, I'm sure that with this few hands that it's one of those hands that we have. So I'm just going to say this is kind of his range. For us, this is my ISO range. This is everything. Always an optional ISO. You can see 8s is in the always. I think with these two players being very loose, I don't mind getting in there. I think most of the time they're going to be missing the flop. So let's just go ahead, raise. Let's get some money in there now. Let's hope to pick it up on the flop. If they all fold, they all fold. There's nothing we could do. We would make this play with aces and kings, just like we would with some of the suited aces, suited kings, and so forth. So we raise the 6. It folds, blinds fold, and the first guy folds. So I'm going to guess he has something like really weak, one of these super weak hands. And then this guy is going to call. So does he call with all of his range? I'm going to remove some of these hands just to kind of tighten it up a little bit. I think we're going to go with that. So then the flop comes down 4, 6, 7. Has 2 hearts to it. We do have an 8 of hearts, so we have backdoor potential. Also having an out kind of reduces the number of flush draws that this villain could have. So villain checks, no big surprise, and then we fired out half pot bet. Do we necessarily need that sizing? Yeah, we've got your overpairs that he probably doesn't have. We have the trips, but I think he could also have trips. He could have 4s and 6s and 7s. We obviously can have, straight draw, 5-3. Do we have a 5-3? I think so. I think that is part of our ISO raising range. And he has it too, but would they necessarily put us on a 5-3? Probably not. Probably not. So I like the c-bet here because we're going to be c-betting a lot of our hands. Just for example, I think we're doing all of our overpairs for value. We're doing flush draws, open enders, gut shots. We're probably going to be doing 2-card backdoor flush draws, the diamonds, and that's going to be like all of our diamonds. You can see we're up to 46. So we're probably also betting top pair, middle pair. Those are going to be a little bit for value, a little bit for protection. We're betting our the 5s. That's going to be part of the draw. That's about 2 to 1. So we're betting 53%. That's probably appropriate. We've got all these no-made hands that we could throw in, especially when we see his fold to c-bet stat. That's the thing. Out of position, 1 out of 2. He hasn't folded all the time. This board probably doesn't hit him, but he could. I mean, it could. He does have these middle cards. Some of these middle cards. You know, if we think about what cards does he call with, we're gonna say, let's say he calls with all of his pairs, even like 2s and 3s, just really cruddy pocket pairs. He calls with his flush draw, open enders, his let's say a 2-card gut shot. Well, we'll give him the 1-card gut shots as well and the 1-card open enders. We're looking at 60%. And I think the frequency at which he calls here, I still like the bet, but I think we could go smaller. So we could bet, 5 big blinds, 6 big blinds. Little less risk, or we're risking less money on this play. We're going for that 40%. So the smaller the bet, the less often he has to fold to make this a plus EV play. I think that would be a little bit better. Save ourselves, a big bet, a little more than a big bet. So he does call, and we're going to see a turn, which is the 4 hearts. So if he had a 4, he improved. We improved. Improved our heart. But, did he improve it? Yeah, he would have. But again, I have a heart, so that's going to exclude some of his heart draws. It's going to make it less likely that he has that flush compared to the times when I don't have that 8 of hearts. So villain checks again. And the question is, would he ever bet? I don't think so. So if I bet again, what does he call with? I think he probably calls with all of those, like 5s. 2s and 3s, he probably just gives up. Maybe the 3s. He's definitely going to call with your well, he doesn't have any of these nut flush draws. Let's say weak flush he calls with. He probably still calls with the open enders, but I think he's gonna fold some of his gut shots. A 2-card gut shot with 10-9. Yeah, I don't think the gut shots could necessarily call. So I think he's going to still call a large percentage of the time. If we bet, and what kind of hands does he raise with? I think he raises with the flush plus. And it's questionable. I mean, if you've got full house and quads, he's not raising. He's just check calling. He's going to get the raise in the river. So he checks. I bet. Do I like this bet? Yeah, because I don't think I'm necessarily... I still think I'm probably ahead of a big part of his range. I don't think I'm going to be betting everything here. I guess I'm not when we look at equities. So that's his calling range. I think we still fire middle pair. We're going to be firing that nut flush draw. Probably the second nut. Probably the third nut. We're going to be firing these straight draws. Probably gut shots. So that 10-9 is interesting because if we catch a 9 or a 10, it gives us an overpair and definitely now beats like the 7 and the 6 set that would have called. 7, 8, 6, 5. We are slightly ahead. So had we bet smaller, the pot's going to be smaller, which I think we could still bet a little bit smaller. instead of like sizing up or anything. Half pot, I think it would be fine. So I bet, and he calls. So we already have like his range here, checking range. And then the 5 spades comes, and I think that bails me out a bit. Villain checks, and I check behind. I think Villain's going to be checking everything that he has. Let's set up a check raise. I think he check raises straight flush quads and the full house. I think he check raises his nut flush. Probably just check calls his king high, his second nut. So 17% of the time he's going to be check raising us. He's going to be calling with the straight. I bet he calls with 3 of a kind. He probably calls with a good 2 pair. Probably calls with that top pair. Probably calls. This is questionable of like calling with the top pair. I don't really think he's going to be calling with any of these anymore. So we're just going to go with top pair plus. So at this point, 80% of the time he calls our straight now. Let's get this green for what he beats us with. 9-8 beats us. And all of these flushes beat us. There we go. So like 20% of 20% of this, 20% is 60. So a third of the time he beats us. 2/3 of the time when he just calls, we should be ahead. And then we have another 18% that he's going to check raise us. So yeah, I think I like this. I like this check behind. I don't think he's going to call with enough hands to make our hand a value bet. I think the board is kind of scary enough that we're not going to be getting a lot of folds, but we're also not going to get a lot of calls with junk. We're not going to see like the 2 overcards calling as a bluff catch. I don't think we're going to get those. So he's going to be calling with a pair plus, or in this case, it would be 2 pair type hands. If he has a 6 or a 7, that's 6s and 4s or 7s and 4s. So I don't think I mind the check. And Villain shows ace 4, which is in there. Ace 4 clubs, that's in his range. He turned trips. It's there. He could have check raised us on the turn. He chose not to, which I think kind of makes sense. He's scared of the flush. And that's kind of what I thought. Once I bet again, say, okay, so I'm either ahead of him or he's got this 4 or this draw. And I don't think he's going to have that many aces. So I think a better one would be, let's switch to orange here. Like 20% he's folding on that river bet. And then he's going to call 80%. So I hit my draw, made some money on this. If I bet and he calls, if I bet, do I think he's going to call? Yeah, I think he's going to call. But again, I think we're looking at let's see here, 40%. So out of like that 80% that he would have called or would have played on the river, half of the time he's going to beat us, half the time he doesn't. So it's kind of a close between with a value bet. So I like the check. Moving forward, I think the flop C bet was a little large. I think we could go a little bit smaller, and that allows us to go a little bit smaller on the turn. Yeah, it gives up some EV by going smaller, but it reduces our risk, especially on a board and ranges that aren't super different. Like I'm not like a huge favorite on this type of board. All right, so hopefully you enjoy this hand. If you do, look tomorrow for another one.